Right. So our agenda for today's event, we will focus mainly on a migration tool called Shoreline that helps migrate from anything to Google Cloud. And we're going to focus on a healthcare modernization story with Forefront Telecare team. And then there is a very nice exclusive offer at the end. Starting with Cloudypedia, we started 2009, and our main focus is to help companies to do things. First is to modernize infrastructure, and the second is transforming how teams work together. We are a Google Cloud service partner. We have multiple specializations with Google, including infrastructure, and we focus on SMBs, especially around healthcare, retailer, manufacturing, and so on. Our services are three things. Cloud assessment. We help companies understand if they can actually move to the cloud or not, on what it takes, and specifically on Google Cloud. And also we help in the migration itself, utilizing partners and tools such as Shoreline that we will discuss shortly. And also, after you migrate, we try to help in optimization and proactive managed services. For SMB specifically and for healthcare especially, we have a very unique approach, which we focus on planning at the beginning, and then we set up the tools and set up the infrastructure and extend your network into the Google Cloud, and then we start the migration and transformation. And this approach allows a benefit, allows benefits of three things. First is you get dedicated support. So you get a Google Cloud platform certified engineers working with you along the process, and we ensure that your investment that you're doing has a proper ROI, and we save you a lot of time because we have done this multiple times. So we try to get you the answers as quick as possible. This process and starts with assessment, as we mentioned, and then we start planning, and then we migrate and optimize. With today's focus in this webinar specifically, not around assessment tools or planning tools or optimizing strategies, we're going to focus on the actual work on the migration, is to get out of the co-location or from the legacy technology into Google Cloud. And with that, I want to introduce Brian Shah from Shoreline.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting for me to speak on this webinar. Appreciate everyone joining. I'm going to talk about quickly what we do. Shoreline. Shoreline is a lift and shift tool, right? So we quickly migrate any of the workload from on-prem to GCP, right? So a couple of use cases here is we can migrate whether it's private cloud, public cloud, or data center running different hypervisor, right? So we can migrate those to GCP, and that's kind of the first use case that we have. And the second use case that we see a lot is, how about DR? I'm not ready to move to the cloud yet, but I want to eliminate my DR data center and start with a lowest hanging fruit, such as a DR. So eliminate data center DR perspective, and then use GCP as a DR, and slowly migrate their production environment over the years, right? That's one use case. And third use case is we have a customer lift and shift to Google, whether you use our tool or Google Migrate for Compute Engine tool to migrate to GCP, but they also need a region-to-region protection, and that's most enterprise require that I want to have my regional protection and also point-in-time recovery in case anything happens to my environment or data itself, right? So those are some of the use cases that we have, and that's what we do, right, from a Shoreline perspective. And just quickly, the product line. We have a migrator. Again, we can migrate to any. We can migrate to GCP, and also we can, from a disaster recovery standpoint, we can also protect from any to GCP as well within GCP region to region as well. And we have a Sunshine, which does the unstructured data migration. So if you have large amount of data that you need to securely move it, fastest way is really copy the data in our appliances, and this is just like Google Transfer appliances, right? So that's a third product line. We can also throttle if you don't have a full bandwidth, that's because let's say you have a production data that you need to serve, right? So we can actually throttle when we need to consume, how much we can consume, right? And we have a plan that we can build. So if you want to migrate multi-tier application and you want to migrate in order, so you can build a plan. Within the plan, you can specify which orders you want to migrate. Therefore, you can scale the migration in hundreds and thousands. Because we can also compress the video, we can quickly migrate the data and also minimize how much storage that you need to consume at the target, right? When we store the data. So that eliminates obviously the cost perspective and also quickly able to recover the data from the GCP side. And the last thing is really the environment agnostic, because we don't really care where you are coming from. We can migrate from any private data center, though you don't have access to hypervisor, or you running coming from KVM, OpenStack, or Hyper-V, right? So we are very flexible in terms of moving your workload from anywhere. And these technologies are across the same, whether you use migration or the DR, our underlying technology, how we approach, how we secure the data, how we move the data, right? Those are all same technology we leverage. So whether you use migration DR, we can leverage the same technology. So you have a same set of tools that goes across when you move the data, and then once it's moved, we can protect those applications or the VM itself. So we can quickly talk about the architecture, right? So from a deployment perspective, we have two ways of deploying. First option is through the marketplace. We can directly deploy our appliances in GCP, so that eliminates additional resource that needs to deploy on the source side. But if you don't have a VPN or dedicated interconnect for whatever reason, other option is we or deploy and move data over internet, right? So in this case, we need to have a deployment at the source, at the target source at on-prem or private, whatever the source is coming from. That's on the storage instances, and we deploy in the target as well. So what we do is we replicate between the two appliances, and that way we know what's being transferred. We do over the WAN, we compress the data, and then again, we encrypt all the way through. So this is the second option for the deployment. Once the deployment is done, way we migrate the data is first build a plan, right? Are you going to migrate a single VM, or are you going to migrate multiple VM that make up a one application? In that case, we build a plan and we specify what order that you want to migrate, right? So from that perspective, you can also add policy. So if you're doing DR, right, I want to migrate these application and have it in the persistent disk, or go down to let's say GCS bucket, right, for long term. So if you depends on what the retention policies, what the compliance or the SLA, we can start tiering those data into different storage mediums. So there will be ROI, right? So we can do that, and what we do is build a plan. We apply the policy. And what we do is actual next step is migrate the data. So before we actually migrate, we initiate snapshot from the source side. So for the Windows, we leverage VSS. On the Linux side, we use LVM to initiate the snapshot, and then the snapshot will be transferred over to target GCP side full, and then we obviously will do incremental from that point. Once data is all replicated, now we have data on the GCP side, so you can recover or do a test recovery for risk mitigation perspective, make sure that my data is accessible, my VMs are functioning correctly. And this is where you're going to select a point in time that you did full or the incremental over time, and then this is where you're going to restore the VM. When we create this VM and we'll transform this VM to runnable VM within GCP, right? Because coming from on-prem or other hypervisor, the networking layer will be different. So we strip those out and then insert the GCP networking drivers. And then this is where also you can set the static or DHCP. Once is transformed, then you could do your test validation, and then you could do cutover, right? So you could do the testing many times as you want, and then do last incremental sync during your change control window, and then you're ready to cut over. So that's a couple of steps, right? So we build a plan, we migrate, leveraging snapshot, we transform it, and you recover, and then you test cutover. So that's a few steps to move your data or protect the application in the GCP. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Troy.
Hi, I am Troy James DeLillo. I'm a healthcare IT executive of over 10 years, working most recently with Forefront Telecare. And that Sureline migration tool really saved me, but I'll get into that later. Forefront Telecare is a behavioral telehealth practice that focuses on rural Americans living in skilled nursing facilities and also sees patients in psych hospitals. So Forefront's providers are doing medication management services to these patients, and sometimes psychology, also known as talk therapy. In the past, before receiving some investment, Forefront didn't always have the budget to keep up with technology changes. I'm sure everyone's familiar at one point in their life, at least with this. The challenge was that our infrastructure had aged over time, and we had older servers and older server operating systems in play. Servers were in disparate locations with no connection to each other. Some were in co-location facilities, and the facility who co-located it was responsible for the backups. And those backups, I felt, were uncertain at times. One server was located in a branch office on a hypervisor, which is not ideal. It was very difficult in this case with everything so decentralized, not just decentralized, but just really unorganized to control security. It became a single point of failure for each server, because even if I had a backup, I didn't necessarily have another server sitting there to restore it to. And that really bothered me. I'm sure, again, everyone can relate from time to time. Those are the things that keep you up at night. So there I was. I knew that I had this challenge. I knew that we needed to make changes. And my background is really in hardware, and I wasn't ready to just jump in and start, leveraging cloud tools. I looked into AWS, but there's some conflicting information regarding HIPAA and how to secure it. It was kind of hard to get started. I couldn't even get my trial account to work. I looked at Azure, and they have this amazing blueprint for healthcare, but when I started to try to implement it, it was just too complicated and time-consuming. I found that Google has a real clear policy on HIPAA in healthcare. It's right on their website. And in fact, it would benefit everybody, not just healthcare, to know that GCP actually encrypts data at rest with no intervention, no investment from you. That's just how GCP is designed. After one phone call, I met with Richard Fuller from GCP, who introduced me to Yahya from Cloudypedia, and Cloudypedia introduced me to Sureline. So I'd not only chosen a new cloud technology platform, I had a whole team for the same price that it would have cost me just to run on this new infrastructure. Oops, sorry. So the solution was we moved all the servers live while they were running in production from all their different locations, of course, one at a time, all their different locations into VMs in Google Cloud Platform. It allowed us to centralize control to the entire infrastructure with IAM. We configured load balancing at the network level. We deployed the GCP firewall, which is real simple and very secure. And with some help from our developers, we separated out the SQL databases and we moved those into Cloud SQL. And lastly, we migrated our domains to Google Domains and Cloud DNS. The impact that that had, for about the same price of having a combination of those servers all over the place that I was worried about all the time, we increased security a lot. We had disaster recovery, and we increased performance a lot. In fact, at least 50% increase in application performance. And that was confirmed by our own employees, external contractors, and mostly our providers who use the system all the time. They were very pleased. Easy integration between the servers. So we now could leverage APIs and built-in Google services. We could go and grab something from our database from another server. Our backups went from one uncertain backup per day to snapshots every 4 hours. We now have the ability to spin up a server of any OS in minutes. We can restore data to that server from all within the same console. And we can even spin up a new server from one of our backup snapshots. And then, and we can easily upgrade all those outdated servers that we had because they're all in one place, easy to access. And in the future, we can manage our potential points of failure by moving into App Engine and Kubernetes and that sort of thing when our web developers are ready to do that. Going through this experience has benefited me greatly because as Cloudypedia and Sureline helped me, and we went through these migrations, they explained everything that they were doing. So I learned to become somewhat autonomous with running the day-to-day operations inside the console. It actually inspired me to go get certified. So I have a test coming up. For Forefront, they now have a modernized infrastructure complete with disaster recovery and really massively increased performance. In summary, I highly recommend GCP, Cloudypedia, and Sureline.
Wow, thank you so much, Troy, for your insight and showing it is actually doable to modernize infrastructure for a highly regulated sector like healthcare, especially today. Telecare and is more than ever important, right? We want people to go to hospitals if they have flu, but we want to also reach them at home. So technology from Google Cloud can definitely deliver on this as well. With that, guys, we went through like how Cloudypedia can help as a system integrator for Google Cloud. Sureline is a technology that can help move from anywhere to Google Cloud. And specifically, and Troy, you know this more than me, there are specific environments that's very old and legacy, and it's very hard to find tools that can migrate it as is with minimum disruption to the applications on the server. Sureline can deliver on this definitely, and deliver it to Google Cloud. With that, if anyone have any questions, please drop it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. And as a thank you for attending today's webinar, there is a very nice offer. As long as we have a communication, before March 30th, you get a free assessment for a tool for free. We haven't discussed it in this webinar. There's an upcoming webinar just for assessment tools. This tools allows you to understand really what is your environment in a legacy space and what would it take to move it to the cloud. And it's a tool, you run it. It comes with 2 flavors, either agent or agentless. You get this tool for free. And then you get the migration tool and services. Everything you saw today from the amazing team at Sureline and their tools and technology, you get it absolutely free for charge. Not just that, once you move to Google Cloud, until you get ready, and acquainted, and before the cutoff, all of this costs covered in Google Cloud is covered and free for charge. And after you go in production, you get production support from Google for free for 3 months. So, until you're ready and you're autonomous, you can run your stuff on your own. This is worth thousands and thousands of dollars of services and licenses that for you up to grab. Not to start the project definitely before March 30, but just drop us a line at migration@cloudypedia.com, and we will make sure this budget is allocated for you, even if you decide to move after 12 months. It's just we have a certain budget to give to this offer, and if you want to just want us to block it for you, please drop us a line as soon as you can before it runs out. With that, please, if you have any questions to Brian, to Troy, or to myself, we're happy to help. Okay, so this presentation is recorded and we will send it to you via email. Feel free to share it with your colleagues. And if you have any questions, please drop us a line. Thank you so much.